Okay, so hopefully you're ready for a candid conversation because it's time for part 2 of Jenna Hanchard's series on race and sports.
Yeah, Jenna's here. So this is interesting. I love the teaser there.
Yeah.
So who are you talking to specifically tonight?
Yeah, so tonight we are talking to fans, and we're talking about everything from Earl Thomas to Colin Kaepernick to what professional sports would look like if more people of color were owning sports teams. So what did you think about A, Kaepernick kneeling, and B, how the NFL responded to it?
You have to understand they're not a commodity, they're human beings, you know, and if we want them to, you know, volunteer in our communities, we should also want them to stand up for what's right.
They're going to be nitpicky, and they're going to have major stipulations. So it's our choice to join their league or not join their league at the end of the day.
There's been enough black athletes who have played sports over the last 30 years where the salaries have been just unbelievable. They could start their own league if they wanted to. You know, and it would be really, really interesting to see if we had a number of black athletes who are running their own league, what type of behavior they would allow, especially trying to attract television and corporate dollars.
You don't remember when they had that lockout for the NBA? Mm-hmm. What did the NBA players go do? Do you remember what they did? They went from city to city selling out arena after arena, Kevin Durant and LeBron James. And just as fast as, once they hit a major number, I don't remember what the number was, but they hit a major number, guess what the NBA did? You know what, lockout's over. Let's get these guys back over here because they don't need us to sell out these stadiums. So you got to think, we have enough power. You just can't be afraid to take that step.
Well, we're forgetting history too. I mean, when black Americans weren't allowed to play Major League Baseball, we owned our own league. If it were to start now and it could be owned by people of color, and they'd have to run the businesses, and they'd have to go out and get the sponsorships, and they'd have to go out and get the television contracts. But like I said, it would be really interesting to see if we were owning it. I mean, would we allow Colin Kaepernick to take a knee? Would we allow Richard Sherman to go off on a reporter after he does this interview after the game? It would be interesting to see how a black commissioner over a black league would correspond with that.
It'll definitely be sponsored by Cadillac.
I do drive a CTS, so. And it's black too.
All right, Jenna, that was just a little sliver of the conversation, but what was your biggest takeaway from that conversation?
Yeah, this was an interesting snippet, and I think what was interesting about it is, you know, when confronted with racism and issues of equity, how do you change things? How do you look to change the institution? Do you change it from inside by becoming part of it and change the minds within it? Or do you say forget the institution and create something outside of spaces that often uphold racism? And it's not a new question, but it was interesting how this discussion came up in this space with fans in race and sports.
Mm-hmm. So in this little segment, you know, you talked about changing either from the outside or from the inside. Mm-hmm. What other topics in this installment, or what other types of conversations do you get into?
Yeah, we talked a lot about Earl Thomas and what happened when he was carted off, and how athletes of color are looked at differently than white athletes, and how sometimes athletes of color are looked at as, sometimes they want them to be or expected to be kind of ferocious on the field, but they don't want them to have that same sort of level of energy off the field. That there's some different expectations, different connotations, and different stereotypes between athletes of color and white athletes.
Did you find that the panel was more, I don't want to say defensive of fan behavior, but did you find them sort of sticking up for the side of the fans, or were they mostly focusing on just the bigger disparity in sports?
Yeah, so I think that there was a range. Like, I think there was, for some fans, they said, hey, this is kind of the culture of it, right? The culture of coming to a sporting event. You're going to get loud, rambunctious fans that say, listen, this is my team, I'm part of the Seahawks Nation, or whatever nation it is, right? And that in and of itself is an interesting term, right? I mean, we characterize ourselves as exactly we're part of this group, right? And they've had very much ownership. But what does that mean when it comes to individual fans, when it comes to and the relationship with individual players, right? Does that mean that I can call you anything? Does that mean I'm not going to defend you when you're standing up for social issues? So there was an interesting mix, I think, of people that had some different perspectives.
Right. So this is a 3-part series. You did your first one speaking with high school school coaches. This one is with the fans.
Yes.
Your third one that's going to be coming up, can you reveal?
Yeah,
that?
it's with former athletes. And so we're going to be talking to some really great people, and that's next Monday. That's going to air. And again, the ones that are airing on television are just short snippet versions.
Sure.
They're about 5 minutes. So the full versions are going to be online.
Oh, great.
So I really do hope people will go online to experience and enjoy the full version of the conversation. Part of the reason why we wanted to do this is because we didn't really want people to have kind of these short sound bites, right? We wanted people to get a sense of, people are complex, and our ideas and our opinions are complex. And in order to work through some of these issues that we have, especially in society regarding race, I think it's important to hear from everybody and hear from them in all of their complexity. And that's why we wanted to have the conversation.
And you spent a lot of time curating your group.
Yeah.
I mean, the term even fan, right? Fanatical. That's not necessarily a flattering term. So you spent a lot of time getting together a cool, diverse selection of fans. So.
And I think that's what was really cool about some of the people that we talked to, even afterwards, is that, you know, somebody like a David and a Bo are very different, and maybe they don't talk in the same room often, but they do come and talk in the same room in this space. And so that's really cool, right?
Yeah.
Is that we don't have to talk in these silos. We don't have to talk in these very either educated spaces or other spaces. We can all talk together, and we can all have a conversation even if we disagree.
And you know, something that you said, it triggered a vision. You know, we're coming off elections, and you see where, oh, this is 49% and this is 48%. It almost seems like we're so divided. But I mean, those things force us into the boxes, right? To choose left or right, or choose blue or red. But when you get out of those boxes and have these conversations, you start to see that there are many things that we share, and there may be some things we disagree on, and they can all exist in the same space.
Exactly. There's lots of gray, right? There, you know, I think what I found interesting about, you know, Juan's bit, his last bit, is what would happen if people of color owned their own team, right? And that's an interesting question, right? I hadn't really thought about that, but it was a way to kind of take that race and sports conversation to the next level.
Okay. So
well, and I also wondered if a fun social experiment with all of this. I've only done it one time. If people went to a sporting event, whatever your favorite sport is, football, could be high school, pro, whatever, go to one where you don't have a horse in the race, where it's not your team, it's not their team. Have you ever gone
That's interesting.
to an event where you're just a spectator? I did that one time, and it was fascinating.
Really?
And I had a whole other perspective on fans and the way we act at these sporting events. So.
That's really interesting.
But you've got a great thing on tap tonight.
Okay, so 6:30 tonight.
6:30 tonight, you'll be able to see a portion of the conversation, and then online is the full version.
Is that king5.com?
That's king5.com.
Yeah, I'm sure people can find you on Facebook.
Facebook,
Jenna
Instagram.